That song, I was introduced to that song that I just played when I went to the New Seminary for Interfaith, their Interfaith Minister program in New York City. And we had to divide ourselves up into worship teams, and we created a worship service. And someone on the team, one of my fellow classmates, absolutely loved that music, and we played that as the introduction to the worship service. I was quite taken by it. So, I want to share with you the story of the Red Bow, and this will be in for child care and the youth education program that's going to be happening any day now. There's also 5 more books in our little bookshelf that you can't see, but they're there. So I'm going to share with you the story of the Red Bow. There was a little girl, and every morning she would wake up, she would think to herself, another lonely day, no friends, no fun. She'd look in the mirror and she'd cry, and she'd say to herself, if I was just pretty, maybe people would like me or love me, and maybe I've had some friends if I could just be pretty. And so the day came when she went to visit her grandmother. She absolutely loved visiting her grandmother because she always felt accepted and unconditionally loved there. And so she went to visit her grandmother, and her grandmother says, I have a surprise for you. She said, come on in. And so they walked down the hall to this big mirror, and she pulled back this little girl's hair into a ponytail and put on this big red bow. And she had the little girl look in the mirror, and she goes, wow, aren't you beautiful? That bow makes your face light up and makes your skin shine. You're the most beautiful girl in the whole wide world. And the girl looked in the mirror at the bow and thought, wow, yeah, this bow is making me look beautiful. And so she thanked her grandma. Thanks, Grandma. I always feel so special when I come to visit you. So she walked home, and first she started out, usually walking, she would like clench her hands and walk like this. So she started walking down the street like this, and then she thought about what her grandmother said, and she started to smile to herself. And as she was smiling to herself, a woman who was walking her dog saw her and noticed her shy smile and said, oh, aren't you pretty? Good morning. And that made the little girl smile even more. So then she kind of started to she thought, wow, that bow is magic. I'm wearing this bow, and people think I'm beautiful. So she kind of picks herself up, and she smiles even bigger, and then she meets the crossing guard, and he says, good morning, sunshine. And she responded to that. She smiled even bigger. So now she's really thinking, wow, man, this bow my grandmother gave me, this bow's great. So she's walking down there, big smile on her face. Everybody she sees talks to her and says something really kind and really nice. And this little girl is ecstatic. She's feeling like, wow, all of a sudden she has friends. All of a sudden people like her. They're really paying attention to her, and they're liking her. And she's thinking, man, my grandmother's just great. She gave me this awesome bow. So she walks into the house, and the phone's ringing, and she answers the phone, and it's her grandmother. And her grandmother says, oh, I just want to let you know, your bow fell off right at my front steps. And so she didn't have her bow. And she figured out that it was because it was the way she carried herself. It's because now that she felt good about herself, and she was smiling, that people responded to that. So the magic was really inside of her, not in the bow. So I'm doing a series on the 10 secrets of happiness and inner peace. The first secret was having a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing. The second secret was don't die with the music still in you. The third secret was you can't give away what you don't have. And today's secret is embrace the silence. So on my mark, ready, set, embrace the silence. Okay, we can do the meditation now. No, I'm only kidding, But we are going to embrace the silence later. I can't believe how you guys follow what I say. This is great. I feel like the Pied Piper today. You know, we live in a busy world, a noisy world. Well, a busy world too, but a really noisy world. And for many, being alone, like even living alone, is a nightmare. And some people, silence is a nightmare. They just can't stand the silence. But the silence is where we connect with God, is in the silence or in the stillness. Do you know that we have, on an average, 60,000 separate thoughts every day? Can you imagine? 60,000 separate thoughts every day. And it's the space in between each thought is where that silence is. Can you tap into that space between each thought? If you're craving peace and you want to be peaceful, and you want to experience that peace that passeth, I can never say that word, passeth, all understanding, that it's important to embrace the silence. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily silence as much as stillness. Can you silence your thoughts? Can you still your mind? This is how we connect. There is a saying in the Bible, and if you ever go to Unity Village, and a lot of Unity churches will have this up in front on the wall. There's also in the Fillmore Chapel is a meditation room that's really powerful. There's just like 4 or 6 chairs there, and you walk in silently, you sit down on a chair and meditate. But on the wall in big letters is be still and know. So when I'm talking about being still, the first 2 words, be still, means to still your mind. It means silent. It's the gaps between the notes in a musical piece that really defines the quality of the piece. It's those gaps in between. All creativity requires silence. It requires us to be still. We can't tap into our creativity, which is our right brain, if our left brain is organizing our next day. You know, you're thinking about your shopping list. You're thinking about something that happened in the past. Your sense of inner peace depends on our ability to recharge our batteries, to pull ourselves out of maybe the chaos and the busyness of the world, and to practice or do a little retreat for ourselves, to retreat into the silence. It reduces fatigue and allows us to center ourselves so we can get out there in the real world with all those challenges and be at peace. That's what Jesus would do. He would always go away for a while, or he would go and meditate for 40 days. He'd be gone. He'd spend 40 days in the wilderness. The number 40, metaphysically in the Bible, we interpret the number 40 not to mean 40 chronological days. The number 40 means 2 things: enough time and also building a strong foundation. So it may not have been 40 days. That's just the metaphysical meaning of it. But Jesus, who's like our way shower and our example of all that we can be, showed us that the way to come back and be in the world and not of it was to go away for a while into that peacefulness. The second word, to know, be still and know, refers to making our personal and conscious contact with God. To know God is to banish all doubts and become independent of others' definition or others' explanation of who God is. We have the spiritual the spiritual path is really a solitary path. It's our own personal path. It's our own connection to Source, whatever we want to call that Source. Do we want to call that Source Krishna? Do we want to call that Source the Goddess? Do we want to call that Source Father God, Mother God, Great Spirit? It doesn't matter the name that you give that Source, because it's all the same. So we want to spend our time making conscious contact with God. So how can we access more silence in our life? We can access more silence in our life through meditation. And there's all kinds of ways to do meditation. There is not just one way. There's all kinds of different ways. I'll share with you a couple. You can use the Lord's Prayer as a way to focus in and meditate. And what you want to do is you want to focus in on the space in between the words. It's like if you're meditating, you can think hour, and then you're going to stop. And you're going to hold on to that space where there's nothing, and then you're going to think to yourself, Father. And then you're going to hold on to that space, and you're going to say, who? And then you're going to hold on to that space in between. The silence is in between the words and in between the thoughts. Another thing that you can do is mantras. Has anyone ever meditated here with a mantra, either Om or Ah? Anybody ever meditated with Ah? I figured, Jackie, you would have. Anybody meditate with Om? Om's a powerful one. If you use Ah, Ah is a good sound to use in the morning. This mantra sound, Ah, is virtually in all the names of the divine. For example, God, Ah is there. Yahweh is there. Allah is there. Krishna is there. Jehovah is there. Ra, the Egyptian sun god. Ta, Ah, that syllable Ah is in every single name of the divine. Even the goddess, it's there. The Ah is there. By repeating this mantra sound, you can become conscious of your connection with God. And the evening, the best sound for your evening meditation would be Om. Om. So repeating the sound Ah in the morning and Om in the evening creates an opportunity for us to experience this inner peace and this success in a way that we've never known before. Meditation is powerful. It has been proven medically to do all sorts of wonderful things to our body and to our consciousness, including lowering blood pressure. People who meditate have a stronger immune system. They're more at peace. They're more able to deal in the ups and downs of the world and stay centered. And meditation not only affects us, it affects everyone around us. I did share the story of the group that meditated in Washington, D.C., in a high crime neighborhood in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, and how violent crime decreased by 40%. So just being in the energy field of a meditator affects us. It can change the whole consciousness in a room. It can change the whole consciousness in a town by meditating. The serotonin level, which makes us feel relaxed and at peace, actually raises when we meditate. So meditation is a great way to quiet the mind, which we need. We cannot hear God when our mind is whirling. And how can we make conscious contact with God? I don't want to say paying little attention, because people have good things to share when they're talking about their own personal testimonies or their own concepts of God. But knowing that it's a solitary journey and one that you'll have to experience by yourself. The silence through meditation and doing chanting makes a difference. That helps us get in touch with God. Silence is not divisible. If you could cut silence in half, you'd still have silence. So silence is the most important thing in the world, is to be silent. And when you're meditating, if you just want to be in the silence and you're sitting there meditating and a thought comes through your head, I would encourage you not to try and fight the thought. What you want to say is, oh, I hear you. I hear you with the shopping list. And then just tell it to move on and go back into the silence. When if you're a beginning meditator, you want to focus on the breath. That helps you. Or you want to have a mantra. It could be Ah or Om. It could also be I am. And then there's the silence in between. You can say I am. let the silence. I am. Or I am one with the one. Or I am at peace. And then it's those spaces in between, one phrase to another, that brings us really into that connection with God. Because you want to try and not be dismayed if your mind is whirling. Let those thoughts come. You just let them flow right through. Just send them on their way and then just come back to it. Another great therapy is being in the wilderness. Being in the wilderness. A good way to center yourself when you really feel out of sorts is to go out barefoot and just walk around and stand in the grass for a few minutes, and that will help ground you. Or sitting on the earth, putting your hands on the grass, that will help ground you. Wilderness, nature is very good therapy. Taking a walk in nature, going and finding a nice quiet place and sitting. You said there was something in Jumonville, a chapel or something, the outdoor, a grove or something?
Yeah.
The grove in Jumonville, and just sitting there, you can really, really feel the presence of God. I feel the strongest in nature. If you're having a very, very emotional time, you might want to go and meditate near water. That helps heal the emotions. So, the fourth secret, embrace the silence. If you really want to be successful, you want that inner peace, you want to embrace that silence in the best way you know how. Start with 2 or 3 minutes, build up for as long as you can. 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening would be great. If you can only do 5, that's great too. It doesn't matter, it's quality, not quantity. So I invite you to, we're going to meditate today in the silence. No music, nothing. Just see how you'll do. Make yourselves comfortable. And I'm going to turn the lights down. Oh, I was going to go get it because I'm going to go change it. Yeah, thank you. But thank you. I'll get you just started just a little bit. I just invite you to gently close your eyes. Do that body scan. See if there's any tension. Release it. And again, if you have a hard time and there's thoughts racing through your head, allow the thought to be there, and then tell it to go on its way. And now, the silence.